Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. So today's second video, that will take us to around the 8th of November, and we'll be able to extend out beyond that with the extended GFS and ECM ensembles, which run to around a couple of weeks. Have a look at CFSV2 for the next 4 weeks at the end of the video. As usual, the ECMWF 30-day look ahead has been released. I managed to get it in time, so have a look at that and see what's happening in terms of weather next month across the UK and rest of Europe too, with the ECMWF long-range model. Right, let's go on. We're going to start off with the Arctic oscillation observed and forecast chart. So the black line here shows where we've been with the AO. The red lines at the end, the weather GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic oscillation to go. It's just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state. It's not driving anything in its own terms, just tells us what the atmosphere is doing. So when the Arctic oscillation is positive, you have low pressure across Greenland and the Arctic. But when the Arctic oscillation is negative, you'll have high pressure blocking over Greenland and the Arctic, and blocking is a route pushing cold air out of the Arctic and down into mid latitudes. Of course, where that blocking area of high pressure is sitting is critical to who gets the cold air, where the cold air is pushed out to. But a negative AO can be one of the things that goes along with a colder signal for the UK and Northern Europe. Now, at the moment, the Arctic oscillation is actually on the negative side. It is a little bit chilly with weather, of course, at the moment. Temperature, the Arctic oscillation is going to be going positive as temperatures lift up towards the beginning of November. We find the west-southwesterly is coming back. It's going to turn wetter as well. Not going to wait very long, though, into November before the Arctic oscillation goes negative again. It does look as though the first half of November could be shaping up to be pretty negative there, with the AO telling us that high pressure in the Arctic, high latitude blocking could well be starting to become a little bit more influential as we move in towards into November. The NAO observed and forecast chart looks like this. So the black line again shows where we've been with the North Atlantic oscillation. Red lines at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to go. Now, I've been in a prolonged negative phase of the NAO, of course, going all the way back to the end of April. Been in a very prolonged negative phase, except around there, kind of late August to the middle of September. It did go a little bit more positive then. But since then, actually, we've been negative again with the NAO. That's where we are right now, still negative. Looks like the NAO is going to be popping up towards weekly positive territory again for the beginning of November. So both the AO and the NAO are going to be into weekly positive territory in around a week's time into the beginning of November. But then after that, it looks like the NAO, if anything, is dropping away, although it's staying closer to neutral perhaps than it has been through a lot of October. Nevertheless, it still looks a little bit on the negative side of neutral generally to me with those GFS ensembles. Certainly no sign of it going particularly positive, let's put it that way, for the next couple of weeks, maybe a little bit closer to neutral than it has been through October in particular. But overall, it looks like the NAO is going to be staying around the negative side of neutral, I would have thought. Remember, again, just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state. So when the NAO is positive, you have low pressure around Iceland and high pressure through the Azores, and you will strengthen the westerlies at this point of the year. But when the NAO is negative, you will weaken the high pressure around the Azores and the low pressure around Iceland. And sometimes you will get a flip, actually, on that, and you'll get low pressure through the Azores and high pressure around Iceland. And again, a negative NAO, particularly in combination combined with a negative AO, can be a signal for colder conditions at this point of the year. Centering temperature continues its inexorable drop down. So at the moment, provisional to yesterday, 28th, we're sitting at 10.5, which is around 0.3 degrees below average. Now, still a bit unsure where this is going to finish up. We're not getting quite such cold nights as I anticipated when I did yesterday's video, due to a nasty area of low pressure just sitting off the southwest coast and producing more cloud, a little bit more breeze across England and Wales. So maybe this is going to hold up in the low 10s in the end. I think it will still drop a little bit more from here, probably going down to, let's say, around 10.3 or possibly 10.2. perhaps. But then, of course, we may also get a downwards correction. So once we take into account the downwards corrections, we might finish up at around 10.0 itself. Be interesting to see where we finish up with this October CT. It is going to be a little bit colder than average, I think, overall this month, but maybe just managing to cling on to the 10s rather than dropping down into the 9s. All will be revealed on Friday. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles. Let's go to Richmond at Manchester today. The red line is 30-year upper air temperature average for Manchester. We're starting off colder than average at the moment. Temperatures will be lifting up towards the end of the week and then falling back close to average as we go through the first week and into second week of November. But much more significantly than temperature is what's happening with rainfall. So for the next couple of days, it is going to be dry, but from around Thursday onwards, it turns more unsettled, and then as it goes from Friday into the weekend, looks like another deluge is coming back with large precipitation spikes then, and just staying unsettled then through to the second week of November as well. So plenty of rain to come, and temperatures not particularly exciting either. Though having said that, the temperature anomaly from the 29th of October to the 6th of November is actually a little bit above average, and that is primarily because we've got some warmer conditions coming up, or milder conditions coming up Friday and through to the weekend. I think early next week the temperature probably starts to fall back a little bit again, but for a couple of days, 2 or 3, 4 days over the weekend into the early part of next week, it will be turning milder. And so overall, the temperature anomaly from the 29th of October to 6th of November coming out slightly above average. Precipitation anomalies average to wetter than average. Wettest conditions focused on England and Wales, telling us that these areas of low pressure bringing this wet weather will be moving in with a sort of southerly tracking type jet stream on a southerly alignment. So it could be turning increasingly unsettled, particularly for England and Wales. Or it will be turning increasingly unsettled, particularly for England and Wales from the weekend onwards. That's how the GFS is looking for Friday then. So low pressure is already beginning to meander its way in from off the Atlantic. As we go into the weekend, it just gets more unsettled. We've got a 965 millibar area of low pressure moving in from off the Atlantic there on Sunday. That will bring very wet and windy conditions over the weekend. And we keep this low pressure centred over the country through to the early part of next week with little secondary areas of low pressure potentially just enhancing the wet weather rotating around that main low. That's Tuesday next week. Low pressure is centred over top of England and Wales for bonfire night. That could give a very soggy bonfire night. Now through the middle of next week, that low pressure drifts out to the east, and we turn the wind into rather colder northerly, but only briefly. And then the next low pressure is rolling in from off the Atlantic. This is a very, very wet first week to 10 days of November. Copious amounts of rain will be expected with this. We've gone a little bit beyond day 10, Saturday the 9th of November. That low pressure again is clearing out into the North Sea, but we've got more lows waiting in wings in the Atlantic. Those lows do sort of stall, though, to the west of Ireland on this particular GFS run, and we start to pull up some much warmer air, much milder and much warmer air from the south, although high pressure is building over Scandinavia at the same time, but it doesn't look like that lasts very long actually. By the end of the GFS run, which is the Thursday the 14th of November, you've guessed it, the low pressure's coming back in from the Atlantic. We'll be cutting off that southerly supply and will be taking us back into wet conditions once again. The main storyline at the moment continues to be heavy rain, I think, more than anything else. This is how the GEM is looking. So, once again, got low pressure beginning to move in on Friday. It's over weekend that things turn very, very unsettled indeed, with low pressure bringing loads of wet and windy weather even into the early part of next week. We just keep these trains of low pressure rattling in from off the Atlantic with the GEM as we go up to day 10. There's no change. Low pressure is still well and truly in control of the weather pattern up to day 10, which is Friday the 8th of November, bringing further bouts of wet weather, particularly to more southern western parts of the country. ECM is looking like that. So again, the low pressure is breaking down the ridge Thursday through to Friday. It's over the weekend that things turn very unsettled with these sort of southerly tracking areas of low pressure, bringing the focus for the rain particularly to England and Wales, where there could be some really, really wet weather indeed over weekend and into the early part of next week. By bonfire night, low pressure is still in control on Tuesday next week. But the wind is just beginning to drift into the east-northeast a little bit with the ECM. So for Scotland and Northern England, probably feeling a bit colder with that. For the rest of England and Wales, just lots of rain. And as we head up towards day 10, that's how we're looking. Low pressure taking an increasingly southerly track with this ECM run as a high pressure builds over Scandinavia. So that by day 10, which is Friday 8th of November, actually most of the country is in an easterly wind, but it's not a particularly cold easterly. Actually, it's quite a mild upper air temperature that we've got there, although surface temperatures will probably be pretty dismal given the east will be dragging in lots of low cloud, mist and murk, and potentially for southern areas anyway, still quite a bit of rain. It is cold over Scandinavia, so we would have to tilt the wind sort of northeast to start to pull that colder air towards us. But definitely out of the three, out of the GFS, the GM and the ECM, definitely the ECM is the one that's most blocked and taking these areas of low pressure on a more southerly track. This is a precipitation forecast from that ECM run via tameteo.com. So we've got this rain continuing in this southwestern corner, which is a little bit annoying. It did look as though most parts of the country would go dry, or all parts of the country would go dry through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But this low is just continuing to flirt with the southwest and just keeps the rain going. And that's the reason that we're not going to get quite such cold nights through the central England region, because that just produces more high cloud, a little bit more breeze, which will hold the temperature up. The temperatures will still be quite cold, but not the freezing frosty nights that it looked like we might get a couple of days ago. And you see even into tomorrow we've got this low pressure close to southwest continuing to produce outbreaks of rain in that far southwest corner. Also annoying, of course, for southern and southwestern areas in that you're not getting the drier interlude either. You're missing out on that. As we go through into Thursday, well, then the system starts to push northeast. The first system on Thursday is a very weak affair, bringing lots of low cloud, damp, patchy rain with it. Probably some mist and fog patches. But, of course, it's heralding the change back into very unsettled conditions as we go into Friday. That's when the rain begins to get heavier. Already quite heavy rain across England and Wales through Friday afternoon. You see the next massive rain is gathering in the Atlantic. That sweeps across the country from Friday through to Saturday, potentially giving a very wet and windy start to Saturday across many parts of the country. That wet weather clearing away as we go to Saturday night. But look, the next low is coming up from the south. That brings a real soaking to England and Wales in particular on Sunday. The timings and exact positions of these areas of low pressure subject to change, of course, but the overall theme is one of very unsettled weather. We're into the start of next week now. It's looking particularly wet across northern parts of the country with those easterly winds bringing rain to northern areas. And through next week, we just keep it pretty unsettled, really. Further showers, if not longer spells of rain rotating around that area of low pressure. This is the scenario that we've got on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10. It's only one, so it's a strongly supported scenario. 51 out of 51 members of the ECM ensembles, including the operational run and the control run, are looking like this at day 10, which is the 8th of November. This is from the Icelandic. Met-off is, of course, a ridge of above average heights to the north and west of us and a trough of below average heights to our south and southwest. Looks very unsettled. Trying to import colder air into that trough, but actually most of the cold air is going in that direction. We're relatively mild with the trough, but very, very unsettled, potentially with showers, longer spells of rain and you know, just really unsettled conditions. In 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got. This getting us to the 13th of November, so already beginning to move toward the middle part of the month. We have 25 members of the east ensembles with low pressure up towards Greenland and Iceland, a ridge of high pressure extending from the Atlantic into the UK and to our east. Jet streams up there, but we could be pulling in quite chilly sort of southeasterly winds with that, so that's not guaranteed to be particularly mild. 16 with northern blocking between Greenland and Scandinavia, and low pressure over to the south of the country. They could be quite cold with winds in from the east and from the south anyway, potentially fairly wet. And then 10 looking quite flat. This is a more typical November setup with low pressure around Greenland and Iceland, high pressure through the central part of the Atlantic, and bringing in a flat and quite mild west or southwesterly flow. Unsettled, yes, definitely, so the northern western parts of the country, but that is a more typical type flat westerly type scenario. There are only 10 of those doing that, so if we put the 25 that we have just here with the 16 that we have just there, we could be rather cool as we move up to the middle part of November. Finally, just having a look at CFSV2. So these are 500 millibar heights broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period takes us from the 29th of October to the 4th of November. The coming week has, let's change the colour. It has high pressure out to our north-northwest, high pressure centred around Greenland, Iceland, and down towards Spain and Portugal. Low pressure coming in from off the Atlantic. It's turning more unsettled, basically, in the next week. It starts off relatively dry at the moment, but things will be getting more and more unsettled. So that by the time we get through to week 2, we look like that. It's the 5th to the 11th of November, and it's the Atlantic unleashed. Low pressure is over and to west of the country, and we're bringing in those southwesterly winds. The main thing with that, when you've got those blue colours turning up, which is very low pressure, very low heights within the 500 millibar flow, main thing with that is that you can expect a lot of rain. Then we go through to week 3, which is the 12th to the 18th of November, and low pressure is still dominating, sitting out to west of us, bringing more copious amounts of rain probably. And then we get through to week 4, which is a bit of a change. This is the 19th to the 25th of November. Low pressure is out towards Greenland and Iceland. High pressure looks like it's increasingly building to our northeast. This has been a suggestion within the CFS for a little while now, possibly having a go at getting the winds into the east. Again, as I explained in yesterday's video when we saw something very similar, temperatures will be dependent on exactly where that easterly wind is originating from. If the origins of the air are down here, and we're doing something a bit like that, but it's going to be a relatively mild easterly, albeit in November, we'll drag in a lot of low cloud, mist, murk, and we'll feel quite dismal, but not sort of wintry. Alternatively, though, if the origins of the air are from up here, sort of northern Russia and Svalbard coming around the back of the ridge, then of course that can drag in much colder air from the northeast. So all will be revealed if that high pressure does start to build up over Scandinavia in week 4. But again, as we've been saying in the videos over the past few days, the main takeaway, the main talking point is going to be the unsettled weather. We're still in this drier spell that we've been highlighting for a few days. But even with this dry spell, the southwest is missing out and still having rain even then. And as we get through to Thursday, that's when the first band of showy rain will break through. And then after that, it looks like it's just going to be the Atlantic unleashed. And we go into more bouts of really wet weather at the end of the week, into the weekend, and lasting into next week as well. Very unsettled conditions coming up, and obviously we do have to think about the chance of flooding for some unfortunate people, so we should keep posted about that, of course. Right, that's it for your videos for today. So tomorrow 5-day forecast and another week 10-day video update as well. That's all for now though, and thanks for watching.